So, good afternoon. Oh, almost good evening here in Jersey. I am so shocked, as all of us are, all around the world. We're shocked, saddened. Even the circumstances, of course, were just really surprising and a really surprising reminder. It feels like a couple of months ago, but I guess like 6 or so. Last fall, my oldest daughter was in the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. And while we were there for several days, we did a tour, just walking around doing a history tour. Although I live in Jersey and familiar with a lot of stuff, I love taking an opportunity to just kind of learn something new and see something new. So I'll have to find the picture and maybe drop it in the comments. But my son and I took a photo in front of the home in Greenwich Village, in the city, or New York City, where they would film a large portion of the Cosby Show. And I remember sitting on the steps with my son, and as a lot of you know, the show wasn't filmed on the inside, but the outside of the home was, that was the Cosby house. And so it was just a full circle moment getting to be there, sit there, stare at this place, and reminisce about what that brownstone meant for me growing up, and to be able to bring my son there. God, it was a monumental moment, and to take a photo with him there. Because, if you're my age or close to or a little older, we grew up watching the Cosbys, and for such a big part of my life, and I would dare say almost all of my childhood, watching this character that Malcolm-Jamal Warner, portrayed of Theo Huxtable. And I'll tell you a fun fact about that name in just a moment too. It defined for me what Black family really was in America. I grew up being forced to watch like I Love Lucy reruns and seeing, a lot of black and white Westerns and so much on TV that had nothing to do with me, that almost everybody didn't look like me. I think there was maybe there'd be one or two black ladies pop up that was like the token, like in Star Trek there was a Uhura, and it was really neat to kind of portray that character later on in life. And then on the soaps or the stories, a lot of my aunties love watching the stories, and you might see one black person or a little sprinkle here and there, but for the most part TV wasn't for me. And I didn't see me on TV until I saw the Huxtables and I saw Rudy. And so that was a big deal to see that family that didn't have a scandal, that didn't have drama, that showed Black excellence. As far as I can remember, that was my first time seeing a depiction like that in media, like a lot of us. And it meant so much. And I think that's why this touches a lot of us and moves a lot of us to tears, or maybe almost to tears, even though, the majority of us never knew this man. But it was it's what he embodied on TV in this character. And then even in his real life, as far as what we were able to see, this is someone that I don't remember seeing or hearing about any scandals. He's one of the few. And I'll go back to the moment when I was sitting on the porch and taking that picture back in November, when I sat on the steps and I brought my son there and we took that picture on the on the steps of the brownstone at the Cosby house. I remember saying to my son what this moment meant and what this history was, and how remembering that character of Theo Huxtable and that pure Black boy joy, and him not being a YN. This is what I envision my son to be. And that character and everything that character embodied, that's who I try to raise my son to be. So wow. And just a couple of months ago, I was actually in Costa Rica. What a reminder of how unpredictable the sea and the ocean can be, and how small we are, no matter how great we are, no matter how great our accomplishments in this world. When you get out there in nature, nature and God will remind you of, I guess, who's more great and powerful, huh? That's heartbreaking. So a fun fact about the name for the character Theo Huxtable, it was actually originally Teddy. So if you go back to some of the first episodes, you'll see one of the sisters, I believe it was Rudy, actually referring to him as Teddy. And his name was changed. A lot of the changes that happened in that show and other shows were kind of like unceremonious. Remember in the other show, Family Matters, how there was a little girl and then all of a sudden she just disappeared and there was nothing? Well, some of those changes happened like that in the Cosby Show, and it was just like, you just move on like nothing. Like originally, the Cosbys only had 4 children. And then all of a sudden, and they even mentioned it, that they only had 4 children. In one of the earlier episodes, the parents were kind of having a little joke between them, like, why do we only have 4? Because we don't want 5 or something like that. But then all of a sudden, an older sister pops up and now they have 5 children. And just like that, you know, that's the magic of TV. And there was another name change as well. So Cliff Huxtable, his name was originally, I think it was Clifford. Don't quote me on that, but it was not Heathcliff. Originally, it was not Heathcliff. It changed to Heathcliff later on. So if you go back to some of the first episodes, you'll actually see the nameplate that still said Clifford or something else that was not Heathcliff. And then, so it's kind of, some of us that were really fans of the show and what the show represented, regardless of the scandals later on. And I'm not saying, you know, that should be excused with what happened with Dr. Cosby later on in life. What he was accused of and I think originally convicted of, but from my understanding, some of those convictions were overturned. I'm just speaking about the show and the impact that the show had on us. I don't want to take away from people who, you know, were likely victims. And as a survivor in that regard, I want to kind of leave space for that and not be disrespectful to those women. But back to the point and back to the man right now that we honor. Another, I think, really cool fact is that he was born in Jersey, and he was born to a single mother who was his manager. And although I was born in Germany, Jersey is my home state. And so it's neat. I think oftentimes when someone who really had an impact on us when they passed, you try to look for like connections or parallels. And I don't really know why we do that as human beings, but it's something that I kind of found myself doing. Like, dang, I was just there in front of the house. Dang, I was just in Costa Rica. Wow, he's from Jersey, you know? So that's some of what I'm doing. So I appreciate you indulging me and not finding any thing, you know, negative about that. The legacy that he left, I mean, another example, the fact that he started working as a child and continued to work his entire life and just kind of, I don't know, keep his head down and grind and have so many accomplishments across the board, not only as an actor, but as a producer, as a voiceover actor, as a musician. Like, wow, the quiet impact that he had on, I feel like me as a Black person, as a person from Jersey, as someone who aspires to create on that level, someone who is a creator, someone who is a singer, a musician, writer. It's an incredible. So I didn't want to silently go through this moment without contributing to this conversation and sharing what this moment means to me, what it means even to my children. I mean, another crazy thing. So Saturday, my son and I, we like to have our own shows that we watch together, and we just got through A Different World. And I remember when I went to watch the first episode or two, he was like, this is boring. Can we stop? And I was like, no, give it a chance. And he got so into A Different World, and we got through the whole thing. And it's something I like to do with all my kids, is find old shows that I liked when I was a kid, and we watched the whole thing together. So we were just talking about finding something else to watch, and I'm like, well, we just finished A Different World. Let's do the Cosbys. I really want you to see this family. And this was, I kid you not, this was Saturday. And I was telling the girls sometime next week, because I thought that was weird. I couldn't find the Cosby Show anywhere. I found it behind a paywall or two, and I was like, okay, next week I'll just get on something. I'm trying to avoid Amazon, and it's so difficult. But I was like, I'm going to get on something else that's not Amazon and just pay for, or maybe just go find the DVD series, and we're going to watch the whole Cosby Show. I just said this Saturday, had no idea the next day the news that the entire world was going to wake up to or see later on in the day. of course, death is for certain for all of us, and we never know. May we all be able to say something that I saw Malcolm-Jamal Warner say in one of his interviews when he was talking about how his conscience is clear. I'm trying to quote it word for word, and I don't remember the exact words, but him saying that his conscience is clear. He feels like his spirit is, like fulfilled. He's lived a beautiful life, sending words of encouragement and being able to speak to his life from a place of so much, I would say, like fulfillment, peace, happiness. May we all be able to get to the end of our journey being able to say those type of things, no matter what. So, of course, we collectively say rest in peace to Malcolm-Jamal Warner. And we also, I think now's a good time to, of course, pray for the other. I believe it was another man, male or woman, but I think I read that it was a man, someone else who was rescued from the water and survived, although he did not, and is in critical condition. So whoever that other person is, I think now's a good time to collectively send our thoughts and prayers to that person as well. And of course, to everyone who knew and loved Malcolm-Jamal Warner the best. Of course, my thoughts are with you. Praying for an immense amount of comfort. I mean, for it to be so shocking and tragic, that's all that I can do is pray for a lot of comfort and support, peace, and love to go that way to the people who knew and loved him best. And I'm going to look for that picture and drop it in the comments. If you see this later on my YouTube, then more than likely I'm probably just going to post it up somewhere in this while I'm speaking. And that's it. Bye-bye.